What's going on, everybody? Cleopus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G and the Nokia G400 5G. Now before we go any further, as always, I do want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, and in case you want to learn more about either phone individually, I will be linking to several other videos about each of them in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G, we're getting a 6.52-inch IPS LCD display with a 720p resolution, a PPI of 269, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. With the Nokia G400 5G, we're getting a 6.58-inch IPS LCD display with a 120Hz refresh rate, a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 401, and a 20:9 aspect ratio as well. So in general, while these phones do have pretty much the same size and dimensions, when it comes to image quality, the Nokia G400 is quite a bit better. With the 1080p resolution versus only 720p with the Revvl 6, the image is going to be quite a bit sharper, and with a 120Hz refresh rate, the movement on the screen is going to be a little bit faster and smoother, and this is going to make the Nokia G400 5G feel a little bit more premium to use. So while on one hand, for more basic activities, like web browsing and reading for example, where the image quality isn't really too important, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 is still going to be perfectly fine. If you're doing something where the image quality does matter a bit more, like watching a video for example, you will get a much better experience with the Nokia G400 5G. Now for storage, both phones do have 64GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, so definitely not bad here for the average user, as long as you're mindful of what you're putting on your phone and you offload things to a microSD card whenever you can. Either phone should have plenty of storage for you. But that being said, of course, if you're a bit more of a power user, if you're constantly downloading stuff like apps, and especially more complex games that tend to take up a bit more space, in that kind of situation, you might want to spend a bit more and get a phone that has more storage. But in general, again, for the average user, 64GB should be at least okay. For security features, both phones do have Face Unlock, and they both have fingerprint scanners right here on the power keys, so definitely a nice convenient spot. But starting with the Revvl 6 Pro, let's give them a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the Nokia G400. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, both fingerprint scanners were real fast and responsive. And again, both phones do have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now for the camera setups here, with the Revvl 6, we got a 5-megapixel front-facing camera. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 13-megapixel main camera, a 2-megapixel macro camera, and a 2-megapixel depth sensing camera. With the Nokia G400, we got a 16-megapixel front-facing camera. Then on the back, we got another triple camera setup with a 48-megapixel main camera, a 5-megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 2-megapixel depth sensing camera. So in general, for these camera setups, I would say overall, the Nokia G400 is quite a bit better. Not only are we getting an ultra-wide camera here, which is definitely a really useful feature, but with a 48-megapixel main camera, you can also expect to get really good photo quality with this phone. So if you're going to be taking a lot of pictures, between the two, I would definitely go with the Nokia G400. Now that being said, if you're more of a casual camera user, and you're really just taking a couple photos every now and then, or maybe you really want a macro camera, in that case, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G, while definitely not having as good photo quality, will still at least get the job done. But that being said, again, if the camera is really a priority for you, then I would definitely go with the Nokia. Now as far as the RAM and processor go, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, we're getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processor. With the Nokia G400 5G, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 480. Now between the two, the performance is going to be roughly about the same. That being said, neither phone is really exceptionally fast, especially compared to the more expensive mid-range phones. But for the more basic activities like web browsing, social media, streaming content like videos and music, and occasional light mobile gaming, for that kind of activity, either phone will get the job done just fine. But if you're going to be on your phone a lot, especially doing more demanding activities, then I would definitely recommend spending a little bit more and getting a faster phone. I did run Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both phones, and here are the results I got. As you can see here, there's really not a huge difference. I guess the Revvl 6 scored a tiny bit higher, but in general, when you're actually using the phones, you're really not going to notice a whole lot. But again, for the average user, for more basic activities, I do think you will get a relatively good experience with either phone. Now for the batteries, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, we're getting a 4500 mAh battery that supports 15-watt fast charging, and with the Nokia G400, we're getting a 5000 mAh battery that supports 20-watt fast charging. Also keep in mind, neither phone here has wireless charging, but the more premium version of the Revvl 6, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro, does actually have wireless charging, so if you do want that feature in a more entry-level phone, then that might be a good phone for you. But again, between these two, neither of these phones has that feature. Now between these two, the Nokia definitely does have an advantage here, having both a larger battery and slightly better fast charging, so if the battery battery is really a main priority for you, then you are going to want to go with the Nokia. But that being said, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6, in my experience, the battery is actually really good here too. So while the Nokia G400 5G does have a slight advantage, if you're looking for an entry-level 5G phone that has a good battery, then either phone will be a good choice. Now, another thing I do want to point out here is that unfortunately, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G doesn't have NFC, whereas the Nokia G400 5G does have NFC, whereas the Nokia G400 5G does. So if you like to use tap and pay, then you are going to want to go with the Nokia G400 5G. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, and pretty much everywhere where there's actually a difference, I would say the Nokia G400 5G is the better device here. Although again, the displays are pretty much the same size and dimensions. The Nokia G400 5G has much better image quality. It also has a slightly better camera setup that takes significantly better pictures. It does have NFC, so you can use tap and pay with it. And again, it has a slightly larger battery that supports slightly better fast charging. So yeah, overall, between the two, while they are pretty close in a lot of ways, the Nokia G400 5G is still clearly better. But that being said, if you're really just looking for a more basic entry-level 5G phone, and you're not too concerned about the display quality or the overall features, and you really just need something solid that works, then while the Nokia G400 5G is technically better, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G is still not going to be a bad choice either. But this concludes my comparison between the T-Mobile Revvl 6 5G and the Nokia G400 5G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, I will be linking to several other videos about each of them in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.